Hello everyone, my name is John Bussart. I'm an HPE Business Transformation Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support HPE Servers, blade systems, storage, as well as Aruba networking technology solutions. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint, and then demonstrate to you what that means within a management context. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. What we're going to do is unbox a ProLiant DL380 Gen11 server. This is a 2U platform, or 2-rack unit platform. It's built off Intel's 4th generation of Xeon Scalable processors. And this generation of processors is certainly high performance with the capabilities up to 60 cores per processor. And with 2 processors, that would equal 120 cores. So that's quite a bit of performance in a 2U platform. Other ways they're introducing performance within this environment is within the PCIe slots. So they're using Gen 5 PCIe slots, and there's 80 lanes, with each lane doing 4 gigabytes per second of bandwidth in an environment. Right, so a lot of throughput, and we need that throughput when we start looking at the advanced capabilities through maybe network adapters. We're certainly talk about 100 gigabit network adapters these days. NVMe sometimes needs PCI Express lanes to be able to utilize for performance. Well, there's a variety of things. While we're talking about storage, while we look at the storage inside the system, so there are options for storage in the front. There's kind of a mid plane which kind of pops up through the top, and there's capabilities to have drives in the back. So typically speaking, in the front you can get 24 small form factor drive, 12 large form factor drive, or there's actually a new form factor that's out there, a new backplane that you can get. It's called EDSFF, and it allows you to have up to 36 1T drives or 18 2T drives. So that just talks about the thickness of these drives. I don't know if you've noticed with spinning disks, and you look at a flash disk, certainly flash disks are a lot thinner. So these are new form factors in order to be able to support the size of these drives. Allows us to be able to have a lot more storage capabilities within a system. Right, but these drives are, or this bay is, definitely an NVMe-based technology. Now, another technology within this system is up to 8 terabytes of DDR5 memory, being able to do up to 4,800 mega transfers per second. Now, some people will call it the latency within DDR5, but overall, this is a much higher performing platform or a much higher performing set of memory for our workloads in our environment. Other things, there's certainly GPU support within the system. You could do 3 double wide or 8 single wide video cards within the system, or GPUs, I should say, within the system. If that's not enough for you, there is a cousin to this DL380. It's called a DL380 Gen11 system, and that has the ability to do 4 double wide GPUs in the system itself. So for those serious ML or AI workloads, that's something you can look at. That system's kind of interesting. The GPUs load up through the front of the system, kind of where the hard drives normally load up. And it also has some extra power supplies in it in order to be able to accommodate the power that those GPUs do need. But beyond that, it's still built off the same motherboard in the system. So all these technologies we're kind of talking about do fit within that system as well. Okay. So with all that being said, let's unbox this system and take a look inside. All right, here is our DL380 Gen11 server. So certainly, like all my videos, I've split open the box and I've looked inside already, but I put everything back together, and this should be the experience that you see when you open up one of these systems. So let's do that. All right, so back here I have a couple power cords. They're pretty standard power cords. Looks like I have some NVMe cables here. Alright, so we could look at those real quick if we wanted to. One seems to be angled this way. The other seems to be angled sideways. I'll show you where those kind of plug in, or you could use those in the system. In the back here, I have my IO license as well as some SFP28s. The system does have the Broadcom 10/25 gig adapter in it. Don't lose this. A lot of times people toss this out with the trash, but I suppose you wouldn't with the SFPs in it. Up here is the front panel bezel. We'll put this on in the end, but obviously HP has a different look for this generation of servers. These would be the rack mounting rails. They're pretty typical rack mounting rails if you've seen them before. There shouldn't be any big shock here. These parts kind of clip on the sides of the servers. And then these parts kind of go into the rack and you kind of spread them out and pull them together and they'll click in place, and then the server will slide into this. And there's both left and right hand sides of this. So we have this cardboard over here. We'll move that out of the way. Foam packages. Packing to keep the server safe. And then up front, I have a piece of wood up here to protect the server, the front of the server itself. And then inside the bag, there's a foam piece back here. So let me get this server out and we'll continue on our discussion. Alright, so here's the top of our DL380 Gen11 server. So let's open this guy up and let's take a look on the inside here. Something that I think is always nice on HPE servers is they give you a lot of information on the back panel of the system. I think it's kind of interesting to know that the DL380 Gen11 server as well as the DL360 Gen11 server, they share the same motherboards. They're just different form factor. One's 1U and the other one's 2U. This DL380 obviously is a 2U system. They also give you some information about the drive configuration. So here we've got some small form factor drives, 8 small form factor drives. They're showing what it looked like it was filled with 24. Even the new EDSFF drives that are out there where you can double the density of the storage within your system. They're even showing you some configuration with drives in the back of that. So this is kind of a handy document, and it's always with the server no matter what. Now when we look at the inside of ProLiant servers, anything that is purple would be hot pluggable. So this server could be up and running and I could pull out this fan, for instance. This would be a high performance fan. Anything that's blue within the system would be cold pluggable, so I could pull out this entire fan tray, right, quite simply. Let's get off this air bezel. This has also got blue tabs on it. Now within this system we have 2 4th generation Xeon Scalable processors. These are platinum processors. They're 8460Y plus processors. So each one of these processors has 40 cores or 80 threads. That gives you a total of 80 cores or 160 threads per system with both processors in there. So that's a tremendous amount of power. And I would say these are mid-range platinum processors. So if we looked at the top end of the Gen 10 Plus systems, you're going to top out at like 32 or 64 cores. So this is pretty good. We're getting more bang for our buck within these systems these days. Back here is the DDR4 memory. Excuse me, DDR5 memory. These systems use DDR5. So we can take a look at what that looks like. Something that's interesting to note to maintain cooling within these systems. Wherever there isn't a RAM stick, there is a filler panel now. Now these systems do have the high performance heat sinks on, so we got the radiators back here. You can see the cuts so they can hold larger video cards if you chose to put them in the slots back here. Before we talk about that, let's look at the front. This is a U.3 backplane, and I've got 2 of them inside these systems, and we can see they're directly wired to the motherboard. Now the U.3 backplane itself can support NVMe as well as SAS drives if you wanted to put them in there, but because we're directly connected to these NVMe ports over here, they will only support NVMe drives. So let's take a look at that real quick. Obviously, this type of performance, you want to use SSD drives. This drive here, it's going to be a typical spinning disk. It's a SAS disk, and SAS will have both of these connectors back there, but you can see this little plastic piece in the middle, right? And that designates it's a SAS. If that little plastic piece in the middle was not there, it would tell me that this drive was a SATA drive. Right? Again, this is a spinning disk, but when we look at an NVMe drive, and this would be an NVMe drive I grabbed from another system, you could see that little piece of plastic in the middle is filled with some extra pins. So that kind of tells me this is NVMe enabled. All right. Now, these are directly connected because I'm using a different boot device inside this, and this is the brand new NS204i-U. This has two 480 gig M.2 SSD drives in them, right? They're pre-configured in a RAID 1, right? And it's really meant to be a boot device for this system, right? And those are connected all the way over to this connector here. Let's pull out a riser here. This is our first primary riser. We can take a look at that real quick. So this has 3 16X PCI Express slots, but only 2 of them are active. The third one has to be activated with these cables. So you need 2 of them to activate all 16X. And if I grab a cable over here real quick, right, this is the cable I showed you that came out of the box. I can connect that into here. Oops, I can get it in, I'm pretty sure. There we go. And then this could wire up to one of these NVMe plugs up here if I wanted to, or some of these other connectors back here. Actually, they're back over here or over here. That's something important to note. Now this secondary riser is similar, right, in the fact that it's got 3 16X slots, right, but only 2 of them are active, and the third one will be activated once I have these connectors in place. Right, but that's what these cables are. Down here, the PCI Express lanes. You can see these 2 go over here for this OCP3 slot, and I have another OCP3 slot that's wired over here. So it's only wired at 8X right now. We can put inside these slots, so you can put RAID adapters as well as network adapters, which brings me to this. This is a Broadcom 57414 card, so it's got 2 10 or 25 gig ports on it right here. You can take a good look at that. And again, OCP3 is a standard within the industry these days. We also have USB ports over here, a couple of them. So I think that gives us a pretty good tour of the inside of the system. Let's take a look at the back. Alright, here's the back of our ProLiant DL380 Gen11 server. Now this server, here are the 2 PCI Express risers here. Now I want to talk about that a little bit. What you had seen was 2 risers. They had 3 16X slots, and to get the 3rd X slot, I definitely needed to cable that up in order to get that to work. Not all risers are like that. Obviously, with a bunch of 16X slots, you need to get some extra PCI Express lanes to get those going. But maybe, you know, there are other risers certainly that might have 8X slots where you wouldn't need that type of cabling to go in here. So there are options that will go in here. Some other things here. Over here are USB 3.0 ports. Right next to it is the ever famous ILO port. Right. Over here is the Broadcom 57414 It's a dual port 10/25 adapter. These are the SFPs that go into it. So these are SFP 28s, right, that we plug into there and just snap those in. Now the star of the show is really going to be this NS204i. So this is a boot device. It holds 2 NVMe, in my case 480 gig hard drives, and we can pull those out if we want to look at those. Let's take a look at those right now. Right, so there that is. Let's see what it looks like. Right, so this automatically configures the RAID in this system, so you don't have to configure the RAID. I should also note that there was a security device that I had that covered that. Some people are interested about security and they don't want people just to walk up to a server and pull out a drive. And this stops you from doing that. Right? It screws in on the top, right? And you can't get it off unless you take the cover off. But I decided to take it off just so I could show you that a little bit quicker. And finally, we have our redundant power supplies that are over here. These are 800 watt power supplies. You can get a good look at that. So that is a quick tour of the back of our DL380 Gen11 server. Let's spin this around and look at the front. All right, here's the front of our DL380 Gen11 server. I like to bring up, there's another server that I would say is a cousin to this. It's called a DL380A Gen11 server. The difference is the depth of this server, so you need a much deeper rack to be able to hold it. But what it really is made to is to hold a whole bunch of GPUs. Now you can put a bunch of GPUs inside this system, but what happens is that extra depth in the system allows you to put GPUs up in the front on this side as well as this side, and then you put the hard drives within the center. All right, so that's a DL380A. It uses the same motherboard, but it's just a lot deeper in order to be able to hold all those GPUs. Now this system, if you remember, all my bays, all my small form factor bays were direct attached to the motherboard, so they only support NVMe. I wasn't locked into that. I could recable that to a RAID controller, and then I could use any of the drive options that are out there. Over here we have a service tag, which has got our default username and password, as well as our serial number if we ever needed that. Over here is our ILO service port, as well as a USB 3.0 port. And then really, to finish the look of this server, we could put on the front bezel. Right, so that is our tour of a DL380 Gen11 server. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for more videos.